Frank Morrison watched Earth from the International Space Station's observation window. The blue planet looked peaceful from up here, spinning quietly in the darkness of space. His routine maintenance check had gone well, and now he had a few moments to enjoy the view before heading back inside. That's when he saw it, a shimmer in space, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. At first, he thought his eyes were playing tricks on him. Then, a massive ship appeared out of nowhere. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Smooth, silver, and at least 10 times bigger than the space station. "Houston, are you seeing this?" Frank's voice was steady despite his racing heart. Static answered him. All communications were dead. The alien ship hung in space like a giant silver whale. As Frank watched, a beam of light shot out from the vessel, scanning the space station. He felt no heat or pressure, but his tablet started displaying strange symbols he had never seen before. Back on Earth, chaos erupted. Every screen, from Times Square to tiny smartphones, showed the same message in all languages. "Attention inhabitants of Sol 3. The Galactic Council has deemed your world suitable for evaluation. Prepare for contact." In the Pentagon's war room, Admiral Linda Carter stood before a wall of screens showing the alien ship. Military satellites had captured images of 5 more vessels appearing near Mars. Her phone hadn't stopped ringing since the first ship was spotted. "Ma'am." A young officer rushed in. "We're getting reports of more ships appearing over every major city. They're just watching." Linda straightened her uniform. "Get me the president, and someone find out why our missiles won't launch." The aliens had disabled Earth's military capabilities without firing a shot. In Geneva, the United Nations called an emergency session. Representatives from every nation gathered, their usual political differences forgotten in the face of this unprecedented situation. They watched as a hologram appeared in the center of the assembly hall. The alien that appeared looked almost like a tall human made of crystal. Its voice echoed in everyone's minds rather than through their ears. "I am High Chancellor Zixthar of the Galactic Council. Your species has been observed and found to be at a crucial developmental stage. You will be evaluated for potential membership in the galactic community." The UN Secretary-General stepped forward. "We welcome peaceful contact with your civilization. What does this evaluation entail?" The crystalline being's response sent chills through the assembly. "All species must prove their worth. Most choose immediate submission to avoid the trials. You have 24 hours to decide. Submit to our authority now, or face the challenges. Choose wisely." As the hologram faded, the room erupted in heated discussion. Some nations wanted to submit immediately, fearing destruction if they refused. Others demanded resistance at any cost. At NASA's Johnson Space Center, Frank Morrison had just landed in an emergency shuttle return. Scientists swarmed around him, examining his tablet with the alien symbols. Dr. Peter Walsh, the leading xenobiologist, couldn't contain his excitement despite the tense situation. "These symbols," Peter pointed at the screen, "they're not just a language. They're mathematical equations. Look at the patterns." Frank leaned over the tablet. "Can you decode them?" "Some of it," Peter nodded. "And if I'm right, they're not just testing us. They're afraid of us." The next 20 hours were a blur of global activity. The internet hummed with theories and fears. Religious leaders called for calm. Scientists worked frantically to understand the alien technology that now surrounded Earth. In Washington, D.C., Admiral Linda Carter stood before the Joint Chiefs and the President. "Mr. President, I've reviewed the data from our space assets and the decoded alien transmissions. They didn't disable our weapons because they feared them. They did it to show they could." The President looked tired. "Your recommendation, Admiral." "We take their challenge," Linda said firmly. "The transmissions we've decoded suggest they expect us to submit. No species has ever chosen to face the trials. I think that tells us something important about these aliens. They value obedience over innovation." The President nodded slowly. "And if we fail their trials?" "Then we fail on our feet, sir," not on our knees. The emergency UN session reconvened with just 3 hours left to decide. The alien hologram appeared again, but this time, the Secretary General spoke first. "We have made our decision," she announced. "Humanity chooses to face the challenges." For the first time, the crystalline being showed emotion. Its surface rippled like disturbed water. "You are the first species to ever reject immediate submission. This is unexpected. Humanity has never backed down from a challenge." The Secretary General replied. "We will not start now." The alien's mental voice carried a new tone, something almost like respect. "Very well. The trials will test 3 aspects: your technological innovation, your combat prowess, and your species unity. Fail any challenge, and Earth will be isolated from galactic civilization forever. Succeed. And if we succeed..." Linda Carter called out from her place in the gallery. "If you succeed, you will have earned something no other species has, the right to join the Galactic Council, as equals, not subordinates." As the alien vanished, a strange calm settled over the assembly. Humanity had just bet its future on its ability to prove itself worthy. The next day, every newspaper on Earth carried the same basic headline: "Humanity chooses to fight." In orbit, Frank Morrison watched more alien ships arrive. But now, instead of feeling fear, he felt something else: pride. Whatever these beings thought they knew about humanity, they were about to learn they had made a serious mistake. The first challenge would begin in 1 week. As Frank looked down at Earth, he saw cities blazing with light, refusing to dim in the face of these cosmic visitors. Somewhere down there, scientists were already working on faster-than-light travel. Soldiers were preparing for combat scenarios they had only seen in science fiction. Diplomats were learning to think in ways that would unite humanity like never before. The aliens had meant to humble humanity. Instead, they had given them something powerful: a reason to show the galaxy exactly what humans could do when someone told them no. Frank smiled as he watched another alien ship appear. "Welcome to Earth," he whispered. "You have no idea what you're in for." In the coming days, humanity would face challenges designed to prove their inferiority. But the Galactic Council had made one crucial mistake. They had judged humanity by their technology, not by their spirit. They were about to learn why that was the galaxy's biggest mistake. 1 week after Earth's decision to face the trials, the sky over Geneva turned purple. The alien ship that descended was smaller than the others, but more elegant, its surface shifting colors like oil on water. High Judge Krithax had arrived to oversee humanity's evaluation. In the newly constructed Galactic Assessment Center, Dr. Peter Walsh adjusted his tie nervously. Commander Amy Richardson stood beside him, her military posture perfect as always. Daniel Brooks, Earth's chosen diplomat, paced the room, practicing his opening speech one last time. "Remember," Daniel said, stopping his pacing, "we're not here to beg. We're here to prove ourselves." The room's massive doors slid open. High Judge Krithax floated in, its body a swirling mass of colors contained within a transparent shell. Unlike the crystalline form of the High Chancellor, Krithax looked more like a living rainbow. "Representatives of Earth," Krithax's thoughts echoed in their minds. "I have reviewed 10,000 species in my lifetime. None have chosen the path you walk today." Commander Richardson stepped forward. "Then perhaps you've been measuring success the wrong way." Krithax's colors whirled faster. "Interesting. Most species show perfect respect when meeting their evaluator." "Respect is earned," Amy replied, "just like our place in the galaxy will be." The alien judge moved closer, its colors shifting to deep blues and purples. "Very well. Let us begin with the details of your evaluation. 3 challenges await you. Each must be completed within 1 standard galactic cycle, approximately 1 Earth year." Dr. Walsh took careful notes as Krithax explained each challenge. The first would test their technological innovation. Earth would need to develop faster-than-light travel without direct alien assistance. The second would evaluate their combat prowess. through a series of simulated invasion scenarios. The third would measure their unity in the face of artificial crisis. And if we fail any challenge? Daniel asked. Then Earth will be sealed off from galactic civilization for 1,000 years, Krithax answered. No trade, no cultural exchange, no technological advancement beyond your own slow progress. Back at the Pentagon, Admiral Linda Carter reviewed the challenge requirements with her team. The alien judge had provided basic guidelines for each test, but the details were troubling. They want us to develop FTL travel in 1 year, she said to the assembled leaders. Most species take decades with alien help. We have to do it alone. Dr. Catherine Martinez, the lead physicist on the FTL project, raised her hand. Actually, Admiral, we might have an advantage there. Our quantum theories are different from the standard galactic models. Different how? Catherine smiled. They think too linearly. Human minds are better at seeing unusual connections. We've already started working on a new approach using dark matter manipulation. Across the globe, humanity began preparing for the challenges. Every major city had transformed its scientific centers into round-the-clock research facilities. Military bases ran combat simulations day and night. Diplomats worked to strengthen international bonds like never before. In orbit, Frank Morrison helped construct the new testing facilities. The aliens had allowed Earth to build basic orbital platforms for the challenges, though they carefully monitored all construction. They're watching everything we do, Frank said to Amy Richardson during her inspection of the orbital station. But they're watching the wrong things. Amy nodded. They're looking for advanced technology. They don't understand that humanity's greatest weapon has always been our creativity. The first official test came 3 days later. Krithax presented Earth's representatives with a standard galactic intelligence assessment. The questions seemed strange to human minds, too rigid, too focused on following established patterns. Your species shows concerning irregularities in thought processes, Krithax announced after reviewing the results. You frequently choose innovative but inefficient solutions over established procedures. Daniel Brooks couldn't help laughing. With all respect, Your Honor, that's exactly why we'll succeed. The alien judge's colors darkened. Explain. Humanity has never been good at staying inside the lines, Daniel said. We don't look for the established solution. We look for new ones. Sometimes that means making mistakes, but it also means making discoveries. In the following weeks, Earth's preparation intensified. Countries shared research data that would have been top secret just months ago. Military leaders from former enemy nations worked together, developing strategies that broke every conventional rule of combat. Dr. Walsh spent his days studying the alien biological data they'd been given access to. They think in absolutes, he explained to his international team. Right or wrong, success or failure. They don't understand that sometimes the best path forward involves both. 1 month into the evaluation period, Earth received its first surprise visitor. A representative from the Proxima Coalition, a group of species who had submitted to the Council, arrived to observe. We do not understand, the alien said to the UN Assembly. Your species continues to attempt impossible approaches to FTL travel. You train your soldiers in chaos rather than order. Your leaders argue openly rather than presenting unity. Yet you do not seem concerned about failure. The Secretary General's response was simple. That's because what you see as signs of failure, we recognize as the process of success. As the first month of evaluation drew to a close, Krithax called Earth's representatives together again. The alien judge had been watching humanity's preparations with increasing interest. Your species defies conventional analysis, Krithax announced. You waste resources on failed experiments, yet these failures often lead to unexpected progress. You argue among yourselves, yet emerge stronger. You face impossible odds with what appears to be insufficient concern. We call that hope, Amy Richardson said. Combined with determination, it's the most powerful force humans have. Krithax's colors shifted to a pattern none of them had seen before. Perhaps that is why you are the first to choose the challenges. You see possibility where others see only risk. As the meeting ended, Daniel Brooks stayed behind. Your Honor, may I ask a question? The alien judge paused. You may. Why did the council really create these challenges? The real reason. Krithax was silent for a long moment. When it finally responded, its colors were very dim. To prove that the council's way was the only way. No species has ever succeeded at the trials because they were designed to be impossible by the council's understanding of possibility. Daniel smiled. Then it's a good thing we don't share that understanding. That night, as Earth's lights blazed in defiance of the darkness, humanity continued its preparations. In labs around the world, scientists pursued impossible theories. In training grounds, soldiers practiced illogical strategies. In meeting rooms, leaders forged chaotic alliances. The council had created their challenges based on their own limitations. They were about to learn that humanity's greatest strength was their ability to see beyond such limitations. The real assessment was just beginning, and Earth was ready to show the galaxy exactly what impossible meant to the human race. Dr. Catherine Martinez stared at the holographic display floating above her desk. 3 months had passed since the challenges began, and the FTL project was about to try something no other species had ever attempted. Are you sure about this? Frank Morrison asked from his position at the test controls. He had been assigned as the project's safety officer, given his experience with both space operations and alien technology. Catherine nodded, her eyes never leaving the complex equations spinning in the air. The aliens think FTL travel requires pushing through space. We're going to pull space instead. The test chamber at the Global Science Center in Colorado hummed with energy. Scientists from 50 nations worked at various stations, each monitoring different aspects of the experiment. They had already failed 27 times, but each failure taught them something new. High Judge Krithax floated near the observation window, its colors showing signs of what the humans had learned to recognize as confusion. Your approach violates standard physical models, it transmitted to the room. Good, Catherine replied, making a final adjustment to the test parameters. Standard models haven't worked for us so far. Frank, start the sequence. The test chamber filled with a soft blue light. In the center, a small probe about the size of a basketball began to vibrate. Instead of trying to push the probe through space like a bullet, as all other species did, the humans had designed a system to create a gravity well in front of it. Dark matter manipulation at 15%, one of the scientists called out. 20%, 30%. Krithax's colors swirled rapidly. This method has been proven impossible by the Council's best minds. Watch closely then, Catherine said, her fingers dancing over the controls. You're about to see impossible happen. The probe shimmered and stretched, but instead of breaking apart like in previous tests, it held together. The space around it began to bend, creating a tunnel of twisted light. Dark matter field stable at 60%. The scientist reported. Gravity well forming. Probe integrity holding. Frank checked his readings twice. Dr. Martinez, I think we're actually doing it. The probe suddenly shot forward, vanished for exactly 3 seconds, then reappeared at the other end of the test chamber. The room erupted in cheers. They had just moved an object faster than light. Krithax's shell actually cracked slightly, a sign of extreme shock in its species. This is not possible. You cannot simply pull space. Catherine grinned. We just did. And that was only the first test. Over the next week, news of the successful FTL test spread across Earth. But Catherine and her team weren't celebrating yet. They had moved a small probe across a room. They still needed to build a ship that could cross light years. In the orbital construction facility, Amy Richardson watched as engineers began adapting the test technology for larger applications. How long until we can scale this up? She asked the chief engineer. That's the beautiful part, he replied. Our design gets more efficient as it gets bigger. The aliens have been using brute force to push through space. We're letting space do the work for us. Back in the test facility, Frank found Catherine working late one night, surrounded by holographic models of the full-scale drive they were designing. "You should get some rest," he said, bringing her a cup of coffee. She took the coffee without looking up. "Can't. Just figured something out. The aliens' FTL drives all fail after a few jumps because they fight against space. Ours won't have that problem. We're working with space, not against it. Like riding a wave instead of punching through it," Frank said. Catherine finally looked up, smiling. "Exactly. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to see problems differently." 2 months later, the first human FTL ship was ready for testing. It was small, designed for a crew of 3, but its dark matter drive was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Krithax insisted on being present for the test flight. The alien judge had spent the last months watching humans repeatedly succeed using methods the Council had declared impossible. "Even if this works," Krithax transmitted, "your method is inefficient by Council standards." Daniel Brooks, who had come to observe the test, laughed. "You know what humans call an inefficient solution that works. A solution." The test ship, named Pioneer, prepared for launch. Frank Morrison sat in the pilot's seat, with Catherine beside him as engineer. Amy Richardson completed the crew as mission commander. "Remember," Catherine said as they went through pre-flight checks, "the drive doesn't move us through space. It moves space around us, like folding a piece of paper to bring 2 points together." Amy nodded. "Simple in theory. Let's see if it's simple in practice." The launch countdown began. On Earth, billions watched through video feeds. In the Galactic Council chambers, representatives from hundreds of species gathered to observe what they assumed would be humanity's failure. "Drive powering up," Catherine reported. "Dark matter field stable. Gravity well forming." Frank's hands were steady on the controls. "Course laid in for Mars. Ready on your mark, Commander." Amy took a deep breath. "Let's show the galaxy what impossible looks like. Engage drive." The Pioneer shimmered, stretched, and vanished. In the control room, Krithax's colors went completely still. Exactly 47 seconds later, the ship appeared in Mars orbit. "Pioneer to Earth control." Amy's voice came through clear and strong. "FTL test successful, and you won't believe the view from up here." The control room erupted in celebration. Humans had not only developed FTL travel in less than 6 months, they had done it in a way that fundamentally changed the understanding of space travel. Krithax's final report to the Council on the technology challenge included a phrase never before used in galactic history. "Species has exceeded challenge parameters through innovative methodology." As the Pioneer made its return journey, Catherine started drawing up plans for an even larger ship. The aliens had expected humans to either fail or copy their methods. Instead, humanity had shown them an entirely new way to travel among the stars. The first challenge was complete, but it had done more than prove Earth's technological capabilities. It had shown the galaxy that humanity's greatest asset wasn't their ability to follow established paths. It was their talent for creating new ones. As Frank guided the Pioneer home, he smiled at the thought of what the aliens must be thinking. They had challenged humanity to reach the stars, never expecting that humans would simply find a better way to bring the stars within reach. Colonel John Reynolds stood in the combat simulation chamber, watching as his soldiers prepared for their first test. After Earth's success with FTL travel, the Galactic Council had immediately launched the second challenge, proving humanity's ability to defend itself. "Remember," John told his mixed team of international soldiers, "they expect us to fight like them. That's exactly what we're not going to do." High Judge Krithax floated nearby, its colors showing what humans now recognized as anticipation. "The combat simulation will begin in 10 minutes. You will face standard galactic military tactics." Amy Richardson, now serving as Earth's combat advisor, smiled. "Standard tactics. That's their first mistake. The simulation chamber transformed around them. The soldiers found themselves in what looked like a small American town. Their mission was simple: defend it against an overwhelming alien force using only Earth's current technology. Scenario beginning. Krithax announced, "Invasion force is 10 times your number, with superior weapons and armor." John nodded to his team. They had practiced for this, while other species relied on direct confrontation and superior firepower. Humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of asymmetric warfare. The alien forces appeared at the edge of town, tall, armored figures carrying energy weapons. They moved in perfect formation, exactly as the Council's combat manual dictated. "Now," John ordered quietly. Instead of meeting the invasion force head-on, the human defenders disappeared. They vanished into buildings, down storm drains, and onto rooftops. The alien forces followed their standard protocol, advancing in neat rows down the main street. That's when the chaos began. A city bus, rigged with simple explosives, rolled down a side street. The alien forces split perfectly to avoid it, just as their manual required. But they didn't expect the bus to be a distraction. From windows and alleys, humans attacked with ordinary tools turned into weapons. "Impossible," Krithax transmitted as it watched. "They are using cleaning supplies and vehicles as weapons." Amy grinned. "Humans can turn anything into a weapon. It's one of our most terrifying skills." The simulation continued. The alien forces tried to adapt, but their programming was too rigid. They couldn't handle the unpredictability of human tactics. When they cleared a building, they'd find the humans had tunneled through walls to escape. When they secured a street, the humans would emerge from the sewers behind them. In the control room, Linda Carter watched with pride. "We're not just fighting them," she explained to the alien observers. "We're teaching them why Earth has never been successfully conquered." The alien forces had superior weapons, but the humans used their knowledge of the environment to nullify that advantage. They collapsed buildings to block streets. They used fire hydrants to flood areas, shorting out alien energy weapons. They turned the entire town into a weapon. "This is not proper combat," one of the alien observers complained. "There's no such thing as proper combat," John replied through his radio. "There's only winning and losing." By the end of the first hour, the simulation showed something unprecedented. The human defenders, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, had suffered no casualties. The alien force had lost half its numbers to traps, ambushes, and improvised weapons. Krithax's colors spun in patterns that suggested deep disturbance. "Your species fights without honor." "We fight to win," Amy corrected. "Honor is for practice matches. When your home is at stake, you use every advantage you have." The second wave of the simulation brought in alien air support. The Council expected this to turn the tide. Instead, they watched in shock as humans used construction equipment to create barriers and knock alien ships out of the sky with improvised catapults. "They're adapting," Krithax observed with growing concern. "Each time we change tactics, they find new ways to counter." Frank Morrison, watching from the observation deck, laughed. "That's because we're not following a combat manual. We're solving problems." As the simulation entered its final phase, the alien forces attempted their standard last resort tactic: a full, overwhelming assault. They expected the humans to finally break and fight conventionally. Instead, John's team triggered their final surprise. They had spent the entire battle gathering alien weapons from fallen enemies. Now they used them, combined with human tactics, to devastating effect. "This is not possible," Krithax transmitted as the last alien forces fell to a combination of stolen energy weapons and improvised explosives. "You cannot simply change the rules of combat." "We didn't change the rules," John said, climbing out of his hiding spot. "We just never agreed to follow them in the first place." The simulation ended, showing a clear human victory. Earth's defenders had proved they could protect their planet against a technologically superior force using nothing but creativity and current technology. Linda Carter addressed the stunned alien observers. You thought superior weapons would guarantee victory. But Earth's history has shown time and time again. It's not the weapons that matter most. It's how you use them. In the days that followed, the Council reviewed the combat data with growing concern. Humans had displayed fighting techniques that had never been seen in the galaxy. They didn't just think outside the box. They refused to acknowledge the box existed. Your species, Krithax said during the official review, shows disturbing adaptability in combat situations. You turn civilian tools into weapons. You ignore established military protocols. You transform your environment into a battlefield. We call it survival, Annie replied. When the odds are against you, you either adapt or you die. Humanity chose to adapt. The Council had to officially acknowledge that Earth had passed the second challenge, but their report came with a warning. Species shows dangerous levels of combat innovation. Traditional containment methods may prove ineffective. John Reynolds read the report and smiled. The aliens had meant it as a warning, but to him, it was the highest praise. Humanity had proved they could defend themselves not by matching alien firepower, but by changing the very nature of the battle. As Earth prepared for the final challenge, the galaxy watched with new respect and fear. They had expected to find primitive warriors. Instead, they had discovered a species that could turn anything into a weapon and any situation to their advantage. The aliens had wanted to test Earth's combat prowess. Instead, they had learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't the one you can see. It's the human mind that finds a way to win against impossible odds. Susan Bennett, the UN Secretary General, watched the giant screens in the Emergency Command Center as red warning lights flashed across the global map. The Council's final challenge had begun, and it was worse than anyone expected. They're hitting us with everything at once, Linda Carter said, pointing to the displays. Simulated natural disasters, economic collapse, and communication blackouts. High Judge Krithax floated in the center of the room, its colors shifting between deep purples and blacks. This is the unity test. Your species must demonstrate the ability to remain cohesive under extreme pressure. The aliens had created a scenario designed to tear Earth apart. They triggered virtual earthquakes in major cities, caused false nuclear reactor warnings, and spread panic through carefully crafted misinformation. They're trying to make us fight each other, Daniel Brooks observed from his position at the diplomatic desk. They expect us to break apart and grab for resources. Susan stood up, her voice firm. Then let's show them what humanity does in a real crisis. Get me a line to every capital city. Within hours, Earth's response began to take shape. Instead of fighting over resources, countries began sharing them. When New York faced a simulated flood, Canadian rescue teams were already moving south. When Tokyo dealt with earthquake scenarios, South Korean and Chinese aid arrived without being asked. Krithax watched in confusion as humans did the opposite of what the Council's behavior models predicted. Your actions are inefficient. Each nation should protect its own interests first. That's not how Earth works, Susan replied, coordinating relief efforts across continents. Not anymore. Not since you gave us a common cause. In orbit, Frank Morrison helped coordinate the space-based response teams. The aliens had expected humans to abandon their space programs in the face of Earthbound crisis. Instead, humanity used their orbital platforms to maintain communications when ground systems were disrupted. Look at this, Frank called to Amy Richardson, pointing at his screen. India just offered their entire strategic fuel reserve to help other nations maintain emergency services. Amy smiled. The aliens thought pressure would divide us. They don't understand that humans are at their best when things are at their worst. The Council increased the pressure. They simulated crop failures, extreme weather, and technological breakdowns. But each new crisis just showed another face of human unity. When food shortages threatened Africa, South American nations directed their entire agricultural output to help. When Europe faced power grid failures, Middle Eastern countries diverted energy supplies. The old borders and rivalries meant nothing in the face of survival. This is not logical, Krithax transmitted to the observation team. We have created scenarios that should trigger resource wars. Dr. Peter Walsh, who had been studying alien psychology, stepped forward. You made a fundamental mistake in understanding humans. We don't just cooperate because it's logical. We cooperate because it's who we are. In cities across the globe, people opened their homes to strangers. Farmers shared their harvests. Scientists freely shared discoveries that could help others. The council had expected chaos, but they got something else entirely. Humanity has learned from its past, Susan explained to Krithax during an emergency session. We spent centuries fighting each other. We know where that leads. When you threatened our whole world, you didn't weaken us. You gave us a reason to show what we've learned. The alien judge's colors showed increasing agitation as none of the division tactics worked. Your species defies social pressure models. You are sharing resources that our calculations show you need for yourselves. John Reynolds, watching from a military command center, laughed. That's because your calculations can't measure things like hope, trust, and determination. As the simulated crisis entered their second week, Earth's response grew stronger. Nations that had been enemies for generations now worked side by side. Rich countries shared wealth with poor ones. Poor countries shared labor and resources with rich ones. Everyone contributed what they could. Catherine Martinez, taking a break from coordinating scientific responses, found Daniel in the command center. You know what really confused them? She asked. We kept our sense of humor. She was right. Despite the pressures, humans continued to joke, to create art, to share stories. When London faced a simulated blackout, people organized street parties. When Rio dealt with food shortages, communities created shared cooking festivals. We're not just surviving their test, Daniel realized. We're turning it into proof of what makes us special. The Council had designed the Unity test based on their understanding of rational behavior. They expected people to calculate their best personal interests and act accordingly. Instead, humans displayed what the aliens considered highly irrational behavior, sacrificing their own security to help others. Your response makes no logical sense, Krithax complained as it watched another example of international cooperation. Logic isn't everything, Susan replied. Sometimes the most logical thing to do is to ignore logic and help each other instead. As the final days of the test approached, Earth had not only maintained unity, they had grown stronger. New international agreements were formed. New aid networks were established. New bonds were created between nations that would last long after the test ended. The Council's final report on the Unity Challenge contained a phrase that had never been used before. Species displays unprecedented social cohesion under pressure. Traditional division tactics prove ineffective. Linda Carter read the report to the assembled world leaders. They tried to break us apart by threatening everything we care about. Instead, they reminded us why we care about it in the first place. Susan Bennett stood at the UN podium one last time as the Unity Challenge officially ended. Behind her, the screen showed images from around the world. People helping people, nations helping nations, humanity standing together. The galaxy thought they could test our unity, she said to the assembled representatives. But you can't test something that's already been proven through thousands of years of human history. Yes, we fight. Yes, we disagree. But when it truly matters, when the stake is our shared future, humanity stands as one. As Krithax prepared to leave Earth to report back to the Council, it had one final question. How did you maintain unity when all our models showed it was impossible? Susan's answer was simple. Because the moment you tried to divide us, you gave us the strongest possible reason to stay together. You became the thing that united us. The final challenge was over, but Earth had gained something more valuable than just passing a test. They had proved, to themselves and to the galaxy, that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their fighting skills. It was their ability to stand together when it mattered most. The great hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with light from 1,000 different species. Frank Morrison stood at the speaker's platform, now wearing the formal robes of Earth's first galactic ambassador. Behind him sat the human delegation. Linda Carter, Catherine Martins, John Reynolds, Susan Bennett, and the others who had helped Earth pass the impossible trials. High Chancellor Zixthar's crystalline form towered over the assembly. We gather today to do something that has never been done in the history of the Council. We are here to admit we were wrong. The hall erupted in murmurs and mental broadcasts. Aliens of every shape and size turned to look at the small group of humans. These were the beings who had done the impossible, passed all 3 challenges in ways that broke every galactic rule. High Judge Krithax floated forward, its colors showing a new pattern that humans had never seen before. I have evaluated 10,000 species in my lifetime. Humanity is the first to show us the limits of our own understanding. Frank stepped up to speak. He remembered standing on the space station when the first alien ship appeared, how impossible everything had seemed then. Now, less than 2 years later, he stood before the gathered species of the galaxy as an equal. "You tested our technology," Frank said, his voice carrying through the translator fields. "We showed you new ways to understand space itself. You tested our combat prowess. We showed you that strength isn't just about weapons. You tested our unity. We showed you that pressure doesn't break us. It makes us stronger." Catherine Martinez stood next to him, holding up a small device. "This is our gift to the galaxy, our dark matter drive design. We offer it freely, not because we have to, but because sharing knowledge makes everyone stronger." The council members stirred uncomfortably. Sharing advanced technology went against their most basic rules. But humans had already broken so many rules, and shown that breaking them led to progress. John Reynolds stepped forward next. "We also bring a warning. Not a threat, but a lesson we learned from Earth's history. Never assume that less advanced means less capable. Never mistake difference for weakness." Susan Bennett took her turn at the platform. "Earth remains open to peaceful contact with all species, but we will never bow to intimidation, never submit to demands, and never stop pushing the boundaries of what you think is possible." The High Chancellor's crystalline form sparkled as it processed these statements. "You speak boldly for a species that has just joined galactic society." Linda Carter smiled. "We speak boldly because that's who we are. You tried to teach us to follow your rules. Instead, you learned why humanity has survived every challenge our world has thrown at us." From the gathered aliens came a question. But how will we maintain order if species can simply ignore our established ways? Amy Richardson answered from her seat. "Maybe it's time for the galaxy to learn what humans learned long ago. True strength comes from diversity, not uniformity. Progress comes from challenging old ideas, not just accepting them." Krithax's colors shifted to a bright, clear blue. "In my final report to the Council, I have recommended a change to our evaluation process. We must stop testing species against our standards and start learning from their unique qualities." Dr. Peter Walsh stood up. "The universe is too big for just one way of thinking, one way of fighting, or one way of solving problems. Humanity isn't special because we're stronger or smarter. We're special because we never stop trying new ways to be better." The High Chancellor raised its crystalline arms. "Let it be recorded. Earth has not only passed our challenges, they have changed them forever. From this day forward, no species will be judged by their ability to follow our path. They will be judged by their ability to find their own." Frank looked back at his fellow humans and smiled. They had done more than earn Earth's place among the stars. They had shown the galaxy a new way forward. "We accept our place on the Council," Frank announced. "Not as students learning your ways, but as partners bringing new ideas. The galaxy is vast, but it's not vast enough to hold just one kind of thinking." The council session ended with something unprecedented: applause. The sound of thousands of different species expressing appreciation in their own ways filled the hall. The humans had not just succeeded, They had started a revolution in galactic thinking. Later, in the Earth Embassy on the Council Station, the human team gathered to celebrate. They had achieved something remarkable, but they all knew this was just the beginning. "You know what the best part is," Catherine said, looking out at the stars. "They thought they were testing us. But really, they were forcing us to show our best qualities." Linda nodded. "They wanted to know if we were ready for the galaxy. Instead, they learned the galaxy wasn't ready for us." Frank raised his glass. "To humanity's greatest strength, our ability to prove others wrong. And to the galaxy's biggest mistake," John added with a smile, "challenging Earth." As the celebration continued, news spread across the galaxy. Humanity had done more than pass 3 impossible tests. They had shown that impossible was just a word waiting to be proven wrong. Species that had submitted to the Council for centuries began to ask questions, begin their own experiments, think in new ways. The Council had meant to put humanity in its place. Instead, they had given humanity the chance to show the galaxy that there was always another way, always another solution, always hope for something better. And as Frank looked out at the endless stars, he knew that humanity's real journey was just beginning. They had proven themselves worthy of the galaxy. Now it was time to show the galaxy why that was just the start of what humanity could do. The mistake of challenging Earth had led to something remarkable. A new age of galactic exploration, innovation, and cooperation. An age where different wasn't wrong, where impossible wasn't final, and where humanity's unique spirit could help guide the galaxy toward a better future for all species. The galaxy had made a mistake in challenging Earth, but sometimes the best discoveries come from the biggest mistakes.